A rainy night in Los Angeles. A dimly lit gas station. Clint Eastwood pulls in, just another stop on the road, until he sees something that makes him pause. A young woman, drenched in rain, working tirelessly between the fuel pumps. A little girl, sketching quietly under the station's awning. He doesn't know it yet, but this moment will change their lives. Forever. If you believe that a single act of kindness can change someone's fate, hit subscribe now, because tomorrow, we have another story that's even more extraordinary waiting just for you. The cold drizzle painted a thin veil over Los Angeles that night. The neon lights of a small gas station shimmered faintly on the wet asphalt. Clint Eastwood eased his motorcycle into the lot, the low rumble of the engine cutting through the silence before fading into the mist. Wrapped in his old leather jacket, he stepped off, inhaling the familiar scent of rain mixed with gasoline. The streets were nearly empty, just the occasional car rolling by, headlights slicing through the fog. As Clint grabbed the pump, his sharp gaze caught sight of her, a young woman, her gas station uniform damp from the drizzle, quietly working between the pumps. She cleaned windshields for passing cars, offering tired smiles to customers who barely noticed her. Even from a distance, Clint could see the weight she carried, the exhaustion of someone fighting a battle no one else could see. Under the station's awning, a little girl sat cross-legged, completely lost in her own world. In her small hands was a red pencil, its tip worn down, moving carefully across a wrinkled page. She drew with quiet focus, shutting out the rain, the cold, and the world around her. Clint stood there watching. He'd seen countless moments in his lifetime, crowded sets, dusty highways, and empty hotel rooms, but something about this scene held him in place. Maybe it was the girl's quiet determination. Maybe it was the woman's silent resilience. He tilted his head up, eyes tracing the sky, though the city lights had long drowned out the stars. Exhaling a slow breath that hung briefly in the air, Clint took a step forward. He wasn't sure why, only that something told him this story was worth knowing. The rain had settled into a fine mist, clinging to the flickering neon glow of a small gas station. Clint Eastwood, his old leather jacket damp at the shoulders, eased his motorcycle to a stop, the engine's low rumble fading into the quiet night. He had only meant to fill up and keep going, until something caught his eye. At the pumps, a young pregnant woman moved with quiet determination, her oversized uniform hanging loosely over her small frame. She was about 7 months along, but still working, wiping windshields, offering tired smiles to drivers who barely noticed her. Under the awning nearby, a little girl sat cross-legged, a red pencil clutched tightly in her hand as she focused on her sketchbook. She didn't seem to notice the rain, or the cold, or even the world around her. Clint stepped closer. "What are you drawing there?" The girl looked up, hesitated for a second, then slowly turned the page toward him. It was a lighthouse, strong, standing tall against crashing waves. "I draw places I want to go," she said softly. Clint studied the drawing for a moment, then gave a small nod. "That's a good one." Before they could say more, the woman, Emily, hurried over, wiping her hands on a rag. "I'm sorry if she's bothering you," she said, her voice polite but cautious. "She's not bothering me," Clint replied. "She's got real talent." Emily smiled faintly, her hand resting protectively on her belly. "She draws all the time, says one day she'll see the whole world." Clint glanced at Sophia, at the way she clutched her sketchbook like a treasure. "Good," he said. "She should." The hours passed quietly. Clint stayed longer than planned, leaning on his bike, watching the world move around this small family. He noticed how Emily pressed her hand into her back when no one was looking, how her smile faltered when exhaustion crept in. When the last car drove off, Emily exhaled, leaning briefly against the pump. "You okay, Mama?" Sophia's voice broke the silence. "I'm fine, sweetheart," Emily answered, her smile forced but gentle. Clint stepped forward. "You need help?" Emily shook her head instinctively. "No, but her voice trailed off. The way Clint asked, calm, without judgment, made her pause. She sighed. "I work here at night and clean offices in the morning. There's not much time to rest." Clint didn't push. He reached into his jacket, pulled out his wallet, and slid a few bills into Sophia's sketchbook. "For when you see those places," he said. Emily's eyes widened. "Sir, Don't make a fuss about it," Clint said quietly. Sophia clutched the sketchbook tighter, holding both the drawing and the money like a secret gift. Clint gave a final nod, then swung his leg over the bike. Before starting the engine, he glanced back. "You take care." Then, without another word, he disappeared into the mist, leaving only the soft echo of his engine and the quiet weight of something unspoken. The rain had stopped, leaving only the faint scent of wet pavement and gasoline. Inside the small station, Emily leaned on the counter, one hand resting gently on her belly. Across from her, Clint stood quietly, arms crossed, watching Sophia shade her drawing. Emily broke the silence with a tired sigh. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm doing enough for her." Clint raised an eyebrow. Emily forced a smile. "I mean, we have a roof, we have food, but is that all she'll remember? Just getting by?" Clint paused, then asked simply, "If you could change one thing, what would it be?" Emily hesitated. Dreams felt too far away, but Sophia, without looking up, answered for her. "Mama makes the best lasagna in the world." Clint smiled slightly. "That's so?" Sophia nodded eagerly. "She used to make it all the time before things got busy." Clint looked at Emily. "Ever thought about opening a place?" Emily gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "That was a long time ago, before life got in the way." Clint didn't say much, just gave a slight nod. Then he turned and headed for the door, boots tapping on the wet floor. "I'll be back tomorrow." Emily watched, confused, as he rode off into the night. The next morning, Emily had nearly convinced herself Clint wouldn't return. But then came the low rumble of his motorcycle. He walked in, carrying 2 heavy bags, setting them on the counter without a word. Emily opened one. Groceries, real food, ingredients she hadn't dared dream of buying for weeks. Sophia gasped, holding up a brand new box of colored pencils, every shade imaginable. Before Emily could speak, Clint placed an envelope on the counter. "For rent, just this month." Emily shook her head. "I can't," Clint cut her off gently. "It's not charity, just a little room to breathe." Then he handed her a small flyer. "Culinary course for single mothers." Emily stared at it, barely able to find her voice. Why are you doing this?" Clint met her eyes, voice steady. "Because you deserve it." For the first time in a long time, Emily felt something unfamiliar. Hope. At first, Emily hesitated. Signing up for a culinary class felt almost selfish. She wasn't used to doing things just for herself, but every time doubt crept in, she saw Sophia's face, the way her daughter's eyes sparkled when talking about her cooking. So, one afternoon, Emily walked into the community center and put her name down for the class. The first lesson felt strange, the shine of the stainless steel counters, the scent of fresh herbs, the weight of a real chef's knife. But soon, her hands remembered, the way she diced onions, balanced flavors, and imagined a dish before it existed. It all came back, piece by piece. And through it all, Clint Eastwood stayed quietly in the background. No fanfare, no big speeches. Just a man making a few calls, pulling a few strings, setting something in motion, because he believed in her. Then, one evening after Emily's shift, Clint showed up on his motorcycle. Without explanation, he nodded toward the back seat. Emily climbed on behind him, and Sophia, beaming with excitement, perched in front, holding onto the handlebars like a tiny road warrior. They rode through the city until Clint stopped in front of a small storefront. Its windows were dark, but the sign above the door glowed faintly, La Cina Diona. Emily froze. It was her grandmother's name, the woman who taught her to cook in the first place. She turned to Clint, voice barely above a whisper. You did this?" Clint just shrugged. Made a few calls. Emily pressed her palm against the cool glass, peering inside. Warm wooden tables, a spotless kitchen, a space that felt like home before a single meal had even been made. Tears welled in her eyes. Why? Clint's answer was simple. Because the world needs to taste your talent. Sophia squeezed her hand tight. Mama, we can do this. Emily looked from her daughter to Clint, then back to the little restaurant that was now hers. For the first time in years, she didn't just hope. She believed. And it all started here. The day La Cina Diona officially opened, Emily stood near the kitchen door, watching the dining room slowly come to life. The warm scent of garlic and fresh herbs filled the air, mingling with the soft hum of conversations and occasional bursts of laughter. Just months ago, this place was nothing but a distant dream. Now, it was real. Every dish that left her hands carried the spirit of her grandmother's recipes. But for the first time, Emily wasn't just cooking to survive. She was cooking with heart, with pride, with purpose. In the corner, Clint Eastwood sat quietly at his usual table, blending into the background the way he always did. He didn't need attention, didn't need thanks. He simply watched, nodding faintly when Emily caught his eye, a silent way of saying, "See? I knew you could do it." Later that evening, when the crowd thinned out, Emily carried a plate to Clint's table. It was her lasagna, the one Sophia had called the best in the world. She slid into the seat across from him, hands resting on her apron, a soft smile tugging at her lips. "I never thought I'd get here," she admitted quietly. Clint studied her for a moment, then spoke with that calm certainty only he could pull off. "Because you deserve it." Those words settled deep, not just in her ears, but in her heart. Emily looked around the restaurant, her restaurant, where neighbors shared meals like family, and Sophia proudly showed off her hand-drawn menus. The woman who once stood alone at a gas station in the rain, exhausted and hopeless, now stood at the center of something beautiful. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was home. As La Cina Diona grew, Emily realized her restaurant wasn't just a business. It was a second chance. The same kind of chance Clint Eastwood had quietly given her. She started small, hiring a single mother from the neighborhood who needed work. Then another. Soon, her kitchen became a safe space for women who understood struggle. Women who knew the power of a warm meal offered with kindness. One evening, long after closing, Sophia wandered over to the back table where Emily was sorting receipts. Rubbing her tired eyes, she asked softly, "Mama, does this mean we're rich now?" Emily smiled, pulling her daughter into her lap. "No, sweetheart, but we have enough, and enough is all we need." That thought sparked something. Emily started offering free meals to anyone who needed them. No questions asked. Word spread, and soon, people who once came for a handout returned as paying customers, ready to give back. One afternoon, Clint walked in like always, taking his quiet seat by the window. Emily placed a cup of black coffee in front of him and sat down across from him. "I'll never forget what you did for us," she said softly, "and I'll make sure to pass it on." Clint held her gaze for a moment, then gave a small, approving nod, the closest thing to a thank you he would ever accept. Months passed, and La Cina Diona became more than just a restaurant. It became a symbol, a place where warmth and dignity were served alongside every meal. Even Sophia's drawings changed. They weren't of far-off lighthouses anymore, but of the life around her, the busy kitchen, the smiling faces, and a hand-drawn sign that read, La Cina Diona. One evening, after finishing his plate of lasagna, Clint leaned back in his chair, watching Emily move through the room. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She belonged here. As he stood to leave, Emily caught his arm. "Why are you leaving?" Clint gave her a small, knowing smile. "Because this place is yours now. It's your story to write." She stood there, watching him walk toward the door. The soft jingle of the bell followed him out into the night. Emily knew Clint wouldn't be back. But he didn't need to be. because what he started would live on. Not in his presence, but in every meal served, every smile shared, and every second chance offered at La Cucina d'Ona. Emily's life didn't just change, it became a spark for change in others. What once felt like endless struggle was now her strength, and through Clint Eastwood's quiet kindness, she learned a powerful truth. Dreams aren't meant to be buried under hardship. They're meant to be fought for and passed on. Her restaurant wasn't just a business. It became a beacon of hope, a place where food was served with warmth, love, and second chances. And beside her, Sophia, the little girl with the red pencil, walked with pride, welcoming guests with a smile that carried a world of hope. That's when Emily truly understood. Clint's kindness wasn't a gift to keep, but a torch to pass. Because kindness, no matter how small, can rewrite destinies. If you believe in the power of kindness, hit like, share, and subscribe. So together, we can keep passing that light forward.